Hey guys, Victor here, coming at you again with another deck profile, and for today's video we're going to be doing an updated Tearlament deck. Now, before we actually jump into the deck profile itself, I just want to briefly state, this one is going to be like on the more expensive side because we are going to be taking advantage of basically like all the various engines that are available to us, but even so, I do plan on making like another budget-friendly version later on in the week, so don't let that discourage you from just like watching this one and like maybe getting ideas, taking it from this one and then applying it to the other videos. But I just wanted to make that aware, so I guess you can technically consider this one like the expensive version, and then the other video which will be coming up pretty soon will be like the more budget-friendly version. So with that in mind, let's just jump straight into it. As always, we're going to be starting off with the monster portion of the deck, and we're of course going to be focusing on the tier portion first because this is a Tearlament deck. So, as a result, we're going to be playing 3 Tearlaments Kashtira to mill cards, 3 Tearlaments Reinoheart to also mill cards and unlock our extra deck, and then one of each of the other Tearlaments to be able to fusion summon, so the one Scheiren, the one Havnis, and the one Merrli. You basically just need to max out on every single one of them, because even the more ineffective ones, right? Like say you have Scheiren by itself and nothing else, like at minimum it'll at least be able to mill you 2 more cards to hopefully start like unlocking the rest of your engine. But you basically just want to have access to all these cards as often as possible, which is why I just opted to run the maximum amount allowed. And that's it for the tier monsters. Then for the supplemental engines that help out the deck, we are going to be including the Horus engine. So as a result, we're playing 3 Imsety Glory of Horus and the 1 Hapi Guidance of Horus. I feel like these are the only ones that you really need, just because the Imsety, obviously, it replaces itself in one other like potential brick in your hand, and the cards that you're discarding off of this are typically ones that you want in your graveyard, right? So shufflers, Trivikarma, fodder for your tier caches, whatever. And then like it adds you your King Sarcophagus, and then also allows you to draw 1 card deeper. Sometimes I'm a little more hesitant to play something like Imsety just because there are so many hand traps, and having this card be ashed is honestly one of like the worst feelings you could possibly have when it comes to playing Tearlaments, and it's pretty up there. Not as bad as getting hit by Shifter, but it definitely hurts. So you definitely have to be like a little bit more careful. You can't just shotgun it, right? You have to like feel out your opponent's hand, see if they have any potential answers to this, and hopefully they don't. But you know, like I said, hand traps are literally everywhere. People play Ash, Shifter, Ghost Ogre is seeing like a resurgence. This means cards like King Sarcophagus, which if you're activating to discard a card to attempt to send like a Hapi, for example, can be ogred, and then like you just lose a big portion of your engine anyways. But still, they're really good at what they do, being pretty much like big bodies that can just hit the field and be a general nuisance to your opponent, as well as being able to exceed summon cards like the Zombie Vampire to just allow you to mill more cards from your deck and then potentially extend off of whatever monsters you mill or spells and traps. So yeah, Horus engine, pretty solid. And then to go with our Horus engine, we're also playing the Fiendsmith engine, being the 2 Fiendsmith engravers and the 1 Fabled Lurrie. Now, we're not playing Lacrima just because I feel like Lacrima only truly shines when you're playing cards like Desiree, and we're not playing Desiree because like the extra deck is already tight enough as is, right? But even so, the engravers are basically there to fulfill one of 2 purposes, being you're either going to be summoning Pilgrim Reaper to mill 5 if your hand is pretty weak, or you're going to be making Wave High King Caesar to give yourself like an extra layer of protection against cards like the Bestials or Nibiru. But I mean, if your opponent has like a Bestial, they probably would have hit you by it or hit you with it by some point already. But you know, it's nice to have a positive attitude, and maybe they just won't have it. Or they're just dumb and they don't want to use it on the engraver because they know you're playing tier. But even so, the versatility that the Fiendsmith engine offers you, whether you're like activating tract, we can add the Lurrie, right? And then we don't have to discard it. We could just discard like a Sulliek and then trigger the Sulliek to add like our tier cache or a Scheiren or whatever. And there's just so many cute little plays that this engine allows you to perform. But the main focus, of course, like I said, is to make either the Caesar or the Reaper, depending on what the current game situation looks like. And then for the 3 cards that we're playing that don't actually do anything in terms of like actually boosting the deck's consistency, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. This is literally only in there to stop the Mole Charmies, because if you get hit by one of those, we can't do it like in Master Duel or the OCG, or I don't even think you can do it in the OCG, but you can't do it like Master Duel, for example, where you can just go normal Reinoheart, summon Kick Colossus, and then search Sulliek pass, and then you'll be able to negate a monster effect and mill 5 more during your opponent's turn. We just don't have that luxury, right? So We're going to try to hopefully draw Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring to be able to continue to play the game that we want to play, being flooding the board with as many monsters as possible and just setting up boards that are very difficult to deal with in general. Then for the other cards, we're playing 2 Beastking of the Swamp. This is literally just here so that we have access to cards like Rokolos, just because sometimes you're not going to be able to make Wave High King Caesar, right? So having something that can negate Nibiru's or Bestials during your opponent's turn, or during like when you attempt to go to end phase, is just invaluable. And then this does also open up some extra deck slots, or the possibility to open up the extra deck, as it is a level 4 water, which means that it gives you access to cards like Bahamut Shark, to give you access to Toadally Awesome, which is another Omni Negate that gives us protection from the cards that would otherwise blow us out. And then for just random one-ofs, I say random, but they do have a place in this deck, being the 1 Kashtira Fenrir. You special it, you search out Tear Cash. It's a body that your opponent's going to have a lot of difficulty outing or just like playing against, because it's, you know, when they activate a monster effect, you can banish one of their cards that's face up on the field, face down, and a lot of the times that can just like end games right then and there, because a lot of decks are super reliant on their normal summons, and even something like Malice, right, where they thrive off of being banished. If they're banished face down, their cards will not activate. So, you know, Fenrir, pretty solid card. And then for the final monster, we're just playing the 1 Shuffler, being the Mudora, the Sword Oracle. We have the Keldo in the side, but you need to have at least 1 Shuffler. And even then, like, I honestly don't feel like they're that great in the current format, just because Malice, like I said, is a banished deck. And then Ryziel, while they are capable of attaching cards from the graveyard as like materials to their Exceed monsters and stuff like that, they really don't rely on that to win the game. So this is more like a recovery play on our own part, but you know, you got to include at least one of these if you want to play the deck. And with that, that's the monster lineup, and now we can finally move on to the spell and trap portion. Now, when it comes to the spell and trap portion, we're of course going to be starting off with the best 3 of in the deck, being 3 Primeval Planet Perlereino. You activate it, you search any tier monster, it boosts all your tiers and fusions by 500, and then it pops a card when a tier gets shuffled back into the deck. You know, it's basically one of, if not the best starter in the deck, because it just gives you access to pretty much everything. Then we're also going to be playing 3 Tearlaments Scream. It's another card that allows us to mill more cards from our deck, which is always going to be greatly beneficial. If it's sent to the graveyard, it's able to search out your Tearlament traps, but for the purposes of this profile, we're only going to be playing Sulliek, and that's basically how I roll. Like, I don't really enjoy playing Meta Noise or Crime, especially game 1 when you're not guaranteed to go first. We're just basically banking on Sulliek being enough for game 1, and then once games 2 and 3 come, you can side them in if you're going first. But yeah, 3 Scream, phenomenal card that gets the engine going. The aforementioned King Sarcophagus, we're going to be playing that at 2. Sometimes I feel like it's fine if you want to play it at 1 and you want to try and fit something else, but you know, it's not the worst card to open up, and a lot of the times, even if you open it up, you don't have to discard anything to take advantage of it, right? Because at some point you will be milling your Horus monsters, so you can just hold this card while your tier engine does its thing, mills out your entire deck, and then you just slap this down into the field and bring back your Horus monsters for free. And but still, you know, it's fine. It gets rid of bricks in your hand. It sets up your graveyard. It gives you 2 free 2400 and a 3k beat stick every single turn. Potential Exceed play. King Sarcophagus, pretty solid, but obviously if you're playing the Horus engine, you got to include it. And then for the final 2 of spell card, we're playing 2 Triple Tactics Talent. I really want to find the room to bump this up to 3, but I refuse to make this card more than 40 cards, or I refuse to make this deck more than 40 cards. And I'm sure I can find like some space to like fit it in, but for now 2 is perfectly fine. And there are hand traps basically everywhere, right? You're going to see people playing Veiler, Ogre, Ash, Droll, the list goes on and on and on. So just being able to play a talent and then rip your opponent's hand apart, maybe draw 2 or take a monster, is just invaluable. Then for the 1-ofs, we play the 1 Foolish Burial, the 1 Foolish Burial Goods, the 1 Tearlaments Grief, which is basically Foolish Burial / Emergency Teleport, and then the 1 Fiendsmith Tract, which is going to be our prime target for the Fiendsmith engine itself, right? You have your engravers, you discard that, you search out Tract, activate Tract, add Lurrie, and then the rest is history. And then that's it for the spells. For the traps, just the 2 Sulliek and the 1 Trivikarma. Nothing too crazy. Like I said earlier, I don't really enjoy including cards like Meta Noise or Crime, because I feel like they're too dependent on you going first, and that's just never a guarantee. So for the spells and traps, this is pretty ideal for what I would play. And with that, that's the spell and trap lineup. 40 cards like always, and now we can finally move on to the extra deck. Now with the inclusion of the Fiendsmith engine and the Horus engine, the extra deck has basically become tighter than ever. So as a result, we're going to be skimping out on some cards such as like Time Thief Redoer or Dugaris the Timeless just because we simply don't have the space. But even so, I feel like every card in here is extremely important to accomplishing the game plan that tier has, which is to swarm the field and make the board as like flexible as possible to deal with as many threats as possible. So with that in mind, we're of course playing the one Toadally Awesome, which you bring out by summoning Bahamut Shark. Very easy, you just take a Reinoheart, and then you're either fusion summoning for cards like Mudragon, or in some rare cases, for example, you can go like Zombie Vampire, mill 4, bring back a Beastking of the Swamp that you milled, or another Reinoheart, or you can just like normal summon a Beastking of the Swamp from your hand, and then use a Reinoheart's graveyard effect to bring itself back. Like, you have so many ways to make this card, it's not even funny, and it's so free. So yeah, you definitely got to include the Bahamut Toad package. Then for the rank 6s, like I said earlier, we're playing the High King Caesar to help us deal with cards like Nibiru, which is also seeing a lot of play more easily, because if your opponent has the Nibiru, they basically have no choice but to waste it before the Caesar comes out, and by that point you barely even touch the surface of what your engine can do. So you know, this card is just great. The only way that your opponent's ever going to be able to like truly ignore this card is if they have like an imperm plus in the bureau, which I mean does happen, so you know, gotta be aware. And then the Pilgrim Reaper, which is Kelpic and Agito at home, adds you just attach a material, and then both players mill 5 cards. So like I said, if you're in a pickle or like just in a bad situation in general, you just summon this and then mill 5 and hope for the best. And then for the final exceed, we have the one Zombie Vampire to go along with our Horus engine. Detach a material, mill 4 cards from each player's deck, and then you get to special summon one of the monsters. And this card is really useful at just helping you gain knowledge about what your opponent is playing, and then depending on what deck your opponent is using, there's also a lot of really cool cards that you can take as well, right? Kashtira Fenrir, for example, is pretty popular in a lot of decks currently, so you're able to like take those and then use its effect to your own advantage to search out your own Fenrir or Tier Cache. If you hit like an opponent's Fiendsmith card or a Light Fiend, that opens up your entire Fiendsmith engine. Like, the possibilities with Zombie Vampire are just insane. But that's it for the exceeds. And then for the links, just 4, we're playing the one Fiendsmith Requiem along with the one Moon of the Closed Heaven, just to ensure that we can have access to our Fiendsmith engine pretty much at any time as long as we have 2 monsters. Then we have the one IP Masquerena, which is always going to go into the SP Little Knight. You could make an argument for playing cards like Sprite Sprint because we do have Merrli still, but I feel like in most situations the SP Little Knight's going to be better. And like I said, the extra deck is already stupidly tight, so I'd rather just focus on the cards that will 100% get a result every single time. And that's it for the links. And then for the fusions, we play the one Necroquip Princess to ensure that our Fiendsmith engine will always lead into like some kind of rank 6 play. You play the one Mudragon of the Swamp, the one Garura Wings of Resonant Life, and the one Predaplant Dragostapelia. I still call them Super Poly targets, even though we're not playing Super Poly in the main deck, but that's basically what they are, right? And even so, like even without the Super Poly in the main deck, we can still make these cards extremely naturally, so it's not like they're a nuisance or anything, and they do come up constantly throughout the game as like a method to be able to recycle your resources. So yeah, all really solid. And then for the final 2 fusions, we're playing the one Tearlaments Reinoheart and the one Tearlaments Reinoheart. And with that, that's the Tearlament deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya!